Good morning, culminators, or depending on where you are, good evening, good afternoon, good day. You could even say every day is a good day when you have Viva Frei as your guest on your podcast. This is a guy who I first came to my notice when I heard that he trashed some of my best work, and the jury is still out on it. Viva, come on in and say hi.
Ron, now you got to refresh my memory. What worked? I don't think I trash work very often.
Yeah, Gavin McInnes versus SPLC.
How far back is that going?
Over 3 years. Okay, we're waiting for a decision on the motion to dismiss for 3 years in the middle district of Alabama.
That's not possible. How do you get the judges? I mean, in Canada, or at least in Quebec, it's 6 months maximum to render a judgment.
Yeah, they have no rule. They're accountable to nobody. And I looked into this. What if I would go and get a mandamus from the Fifth Circuit? And apparently, they don't even want to hear from you if it's not 5 years.
Well, you go get a mandamus. It'll take 3 years to get the judgment on the mandamus to have to.
And keep in mind that this is a senior status federal judge. He's sitting on it because he has to. Notwithstanding what all the wise guys, and it was you and who else was it? The other second guesser, Nick Keto. He can't be dismissed. It's a bulletproof complaint. Something has to, because I mean. You can't dismiss a defamation complaint that says you said that I did something violent on this day in this place. You can dismiss everything else, but you can't dismiss that. So he's sitting on it. That's okay.
Yeah,
he's seen his story. He should live to 120, but someday, some other judge is gonna take up that case. I hope my client's alive.
That's nuts. But I mean, he could dismiss it on the grounds that potentially judgment proof or defamation proof, I should say.
That it is always possible, but how you can make a finding like that, on the pleadings.
Well, especially to the extent they're not allowed referencing stuff that occurred since then. It should be a less likely probability.
Let's take a step back. David Freiheit, Canadian lawyer, does goofy videos. No real traction. Just realizes as he's playing around with YouTube, people love to hear the law stuff. You become a law blogger. I mean, a law YouTuber, and you blow up. How many subs now?
Not that I'm counting, because it's plateaued now that I've made the exclusive
Rumble, right.
Exclusivity with Rumble. But it went from, I hit 50,000, I think, in 2018, give or take, and then it sort of exponential. Now we're at 550,000. The growth has flatlined because the focus now is really bringing things over to Rumble, because a future on Rumble is somewhat less precarious than a future on YouTube.
And I want to talk about that. There's so much you and I could. And look, everyone should remember. And if you don't remember, then shame on you. That Viva and I were on the stage together at a Project Veritas event at the Freedom Fest, and I was and we were on a panel with, it was you and me, Judge
Kaczynski,
and
James O'Keefe.
And the star of this panel was Viva Frei. It was embarrassing, because you have these groupies. I mean, you just chewed up the scenery.
It was quite funny. I mean, it's sort of surreal because we go to Vegas for the Freedom Fest, asked to speak with James O'Keefe, and it's weird to hear people chanting Viva in the crowd.
Right.
But I think the surreal thing about all of this is that we've met through the YouTube. I met James O'Keefe through YouTube. I met Robert Barnes through YouTube. This law tube thingy thing, or at the very least, the niche of legal commentary, legal analysis, has exploded into something that people are loving and people want to see more of. But
they really do, and you're among the pioneers of people who have done that, and you should be proud of it. It's an incredible phenomenon because typically, what the world has gotten used to in terms of legal analyst is MSNBC or some other network decides who your filter is going to be, and that person is going to, spin away. And this is true in every area, of course, but people have an incredible appetite to listen to lawyers talk about law. Even though everyone on Twitter has a Twitter law degree and is an expert on, just as they are experts on, infectious diseases and, the Electoral College, certainly everyone is an expert on the law. But there is real interest in hearing people with experience, because how long did you practice? 10 years before you?
I've sworn in 2007. So I had a good decade of active commercial litigation. I worked at one of the biggest law firms in Canada by number of lawyers for.
Now stop right there, okay?
Yeah.
But that was in Canada, okay? And Canada is a different state altogether, okay? It's one of our nicest states, but it is different from the rest of America in that it has like different laws and stuff. I always was fascinated by the idea that you were. Let's face it, if the action is on this side of
Ron, you don't need to mince your words. I was from one of the biggest law firms. I worked at one of the biggest law firms in Canada in terms of numbers of lawyers. I think at the time it had 680 nationally. So you compare that to an office in New York that has 600 at one office.
No, but but my real point is, when did you start feeling comfortable talking about American cases and American law? Is there enough similarity between the systems that you could wing it? Or?
I've never felt comfortable about it, and that's sort of what keeps me. I won't say humble because that's not the right word, but
on your toes,
cautious, because it's not. I know that I don't understand things, and the whole discovery of the channel was, if I don't understand something, I'll try to make sense of it for myself. But chances are, if I, as a trained Quebec attorney, don't understand something, other people don't understand it either. And if I can make sense of it for myself, I can probably make sense of it for somebody else without being an expert and with making mistakes from time to time. But, what really added reassurance to it is, as this whole community developed, you could bounce ideas off other people, and you could also just be sort of a catalyst or the intermediary for the discussion, exploration of ideas. And so I don't need to know Texas procedure to be able to, discuss strategy of a deposition. But if there's a meaningful question on Texas law, cap on punitive damages, for example, by and large, you can find the answer yourself. But now there's enough people that you can run things by. And that was the essence of it. It's 10 years of practice. You can learn strategy, which will transcend, by and large, procedural rules, substantive law, knowing how to argue, knowing how to listen to questions, listen to answers, know when you're being lied to. That transcends procedure, that transcends substantive law. But it's also not all that hard in today's day and age to try to make sense of local laws. But be aware, you could easily make a mistake because it's not your training.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, we have 50 different jurisdictions, and my partner, Harmeet Dillon, is always really meticulous, not even to take on an inquiry if we don't have someone in the office. I mean, an inquiry, if we don't have someone in the office, at least, who is admitted to the bar in the state where, in theory, the action might be brought, because she's concerned, and I think maybe excessively, but being as high profile as she is, that's understandable, about unauthorized practice of law in that state, whether someone wants to, tattle on us now or try to attack us, sandbag us down the road if we get involved in something. And, that's why I need to be involved with somebody like Harmeet, because I'm not as careful about things.
Also, you are targets because of the type of cases that you take on, where people are going to want to, rightly or wrongly, try to sabotage you, try to get you in trouble. The easiest way, as we're seeing it now, ethics complaints, practicing with whatever. You make yourself targets by virtue of the cases that you take on. But that's why you guys are doing awesome stuff.
Well, thank you. So let me ask you, you live in the United States now.
It is. I'm on a temporary visa, but we'll see what goes. I mean, the opportunity with Rumble arose. It was a good time to take your kids out of Canada because Canada seems to be going the wrong way on a one-way street. And we'll see what happens. But the opportunity arose, and it was not something to turn down. And it's an experience. Move down to Florida for a bit, experience one season life, experience a flat, humid, hot climate compared to the mountainous freezing cold that we're used to in Canada. And we'll see where it goes. But in the meantime, what a heck of a journey it's been.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to tell me I'm going to move from Canada to Buffalo, right? I'm going to move from Canada to Minnesota, but to move to Florida is almost literally the opposite of Canada.
It geographically, climate-wise, and like not culturally so much, but it's the Wild West down here. I've come down here, and I think Florida is like continental Australia. The people are different in a good way. The climate is different in a good way.
Oh, you actually feel that continental Australia is different in a good way?
The people, the Florida man meme. Floridians love freedom. They love their way of life. And also, there's flipping iguanas everywhere. There's iguanas, alligators, snakes, spiders. It really is different. But I do miss the changing of the seasons. I miss the mountains. I miss fall fishing on a kayak. But this is where the journey has taken me, and we're enjoying it.
So, I mean, when did you hang up your red wells? Are you old enough to remember red wells?
No, you're thinking hang up my or take off my shingle? When did I not?
So red wells are those reddish folders where you used to keep paper files. And I have, by the way, I don't know if you've probably said something like this many, many times. I mean, you and most law tubers make what your enterprise is about is basically second guessing other lawyers.
Yeah, or affirming if they've actually done it. Well, first of all, it is very easy. You make sense, but it's my father always says those who don't do criticize. It is obviously the easy thing to say, well, you could have done this, hindsight's 2020, but that's what analysis is about. And then you apply that on a going forward basis to cases that you come across, and it's it makes you better for the future. But yeah, say second guessing, criticizing, or just explaining in some cases. But,
yeah, I think I know a lawyer who is, I think, overly sensitive on it. I know someone who was very resentful that she does the work, and then people like you monetize, make more money talking about the case than we do.
I want to ask who you're talking about, Ron?
Well, I mean, I hang around with so many people, but what I want, but the reason I actually just brought that up right now is that I always say whenever commenting on, not always, but I have a thing that I have recourse to say many times, which is if you don't have the red well, in other words, if you're not really familiar with the file, at the end of the day, you can make your best guess. And I mean, look, when we do the live streaming of what's going on in trials, you can see terrible technique that there's simply no way you can excuse it. But by and large, you don't know what else is in the file. You don't know what the client is. For example, in the Amber Heard case, I did keep saying you don't know what constraints her legal team is acting under that may be confidential or that may be financial or maybe, so you can make your best shot at saying, I don't understand why someone would do this, but it really, and look, people do it all the time to me still, you don't want to ever really Google yourself once you get involved in a lot of stuff on the internet.
Well, you have to be fair in the analysis. I mean, there's critique, questioning, suggesting versus publicly excoriating and humiliating are two very different things. And I definitely don't think I do the latter.
But you are obviously a natural teacher. I mean, I could even just listening to you, I myself can hardly stand to watch to listen to podcasts or listen to, it's too slow. I read 10 times faster than people can talk, even people from New York. But I do know that when I listen to you, I'm hearing you have the ability, obviously, to really formulate ideas and what you want to say in a very complete way before it comes out of your mouth. Were you one of those kids who, in other words, it's something lawyers should be able to do, and it's something certainly law tubers should be able to do. Were you one of those kids that they used to say you should grow up to be a lawyer when you were,
Ron, I mean, it was the joke. Now, it's not clear if it was because of me or because of my father, because in hindsight now you sort of appreciate when you're in grade 4 and your name is David Freiheit and there's only one Mortimer Freiheit in the province. And he's like, known
where
as
are the wait? That's the province. Where are the other Mortimer Freiheits?
Well, you know what? I don't think there's another Mortimer Freiheit in North America. There are other Freiheits in Canada, but there's only like 8 Freiheits in all of Canada, or there were at the time. But you appreciate in hindsight, people knew who my dad was. He, especially within the Jewish community, representing certain people, having sued certain people. So he had a reputation that, for good or for bad, I was living under. So when teachers were telling me when I'm in grade 4, they didn't say Viva. They said, David, you really should be a lawyer. Your son's going to be a lawyer. It's not clear if it was because of me, because of my father, or because of both. I suspect.
So this is obvious to you and your groupies, of course. But so your dad was a lawyer?
Oh no, my dad still is a lawyer. He's going to be 80 in December. He's a lawyer. My sister's a lawyer. 2 of my 3 brothers are lawyers. Let me, if I can think of, their in-laws are lawyers. Lawyers through and through. 4 of the 5 kids are lawyers, licensed. The only one who didn't get his law degree was the oldest one, and he tried but didn't like law, made a smarter decision, I guess. But yeah, family of lawyers. So you imagine I'm the youngest of 5 kids. Friday night dinners was like the original Twitter for us, except at the end of the dinner, everybody goes back to loving each other and being friends and family. But we would have heated debates, shouting over each other. You had to fight to get your word in. You had to listen. I mean, it was effectively what we're doing now. It was sort of like Twitter minus the anonymous toxicity, but it taught you how to argue. It taught you how to have thicker skin, how to deal with being told you're wrong without crying. And that was, Friday night dinner. That was pretty much dinner every night.
I just want to you talk about a family of lawyers. This is one of my set of family lawyer friends. That's my friend Harry back there. But they must have 15 or 20 lawyers in this family. The parents, they have, and all the kids go to law school, and it's funny what you're describing though, because I remember when I made friends with a guy in college, and I lived fairly close to home. It was almost a townie. So I said, why don't you come to my house? My mom makes, nice dinner, and maybe we were going to watch a ball game or something after, and he's an assimilated Jewish guy like me. I was at the time. I unassimilated myself. But he said, I guess he was a generation more assimilated because we were basically 2nd generation Jews. He said, I've never been to a house where people talk back to the TV. And I said, well, I should just accept what it says what they're saying on the TV. I mean, it's like that scene in Annie Hall, I mean, that's like you said, that's Twitter. Everyone has an opinion.
Yeah, and you get used to having to test your opinion. It's not just to say something. If you don't have what to back it up with, one of your siblings is going to call you out, or your dad, who's going to be remorseless and merciless, will say, you don't know what you're talking about. Do some research before you start spouting ignorant opinions. And it's not because you cry in an argument that you're going to win. It's not because you're cute and you're the youngest kid that anyone's going to go easy on you. And that's what life was like. And it was very beneficial in terms of growing up, not taking things too personally, and not being shy of questioning, and not being shy to being questioned. I'm not sure that everybody these days is being brought up with similar practices and similar habits, but
it appears that they're not, or that if they are, it's being baked out of them when they go to college. And it was supposed to be the opposite, that when you got to college, and certainly this was my experience in what you would call university in your part of the world, is that you really had to defend your ideas if you wanted to, if you were like me and you were apt to speak up in class. And in law school, it was even more the case. And now I understand that my alma mater, Princeton University, is ranked like the place where people are most intimidated about speaking up and expressing their opinions now. And how that turnaround happened, I don't even, have to go back to 1985 when I graduated, but apparently over the course of 10 years, it's so let's now talk about the cancel stuff. And because you moved over to Rumble, and it made me think about how extraordinary it is. I was looking at I like to watch. I have this thing having ADD. So one of the things our people, the ADD people, we need a way of drawing energy off excess energy so we can focus. So there's always music, like while I'm writing a brief, I'm working on a complaint, a defamation complaint. You just might even be able to guess which defamation complaint it is. And there's so much to work with. So I'm having, I'm really trying to concentrate. So the more I concentrate, the more YouTube I need. Okay. And so I'm watching, again, the 10% extra energy part is watching this gangster YouTubes. And this guy says, Mike Francisi says, I'm heading towards 1 million subs, help me out. I'm thinking to myself, all the numbers are much bigger than they used to be, right? You remember when 50,000.
Absolutely. 50,000 was 100,000 was the biggest thing ever. But even when I got it's not behind me, the silver play button, they were a dime a dozen by that time. Yeah. The numbers have just gotten bigger.
But you can build a business. You can have 1 million subs and make your entire living on YouTube. And some snot-nosed kid, or maybe if it's at your level, it's some vice president, whatever the hell it is, decides, I don't like what he's saying. I don't like what he's saying. And the idea that there should be no accountability for that whatsoever, that you can simply unplug Viva Frei. Forget Ron Coleman. No one will even notice the difference. I just realized while looking you up, I was going to make a joke starting out about how much richer your Wikipedia page was than mine. I mean, all these interesting things. What a great picture. I mean, you must have.
At one point, they had swapped in my Florida man license picture in there, and I liked it more than that's my running for office picture. But
so I was going to, compare it to mine, and then I realized that I had been deleted.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. As it happens, I'm familiar with the article subject, and they've indeed represented clients in some notable cases, but doing so does not by itself make a lawyer notable. Well, I mean, listen, who the hell cares about Wikipedia? I mean, no one trusts Wikipedia anymore. But the point is that veto power that exists in a real environment, which YouTube is a real commercial environment, and you're relying to such a great extent. Well, you've just demonstrated now that you're not going to do that. But so many people have so much at stake. Something's wrong, right?
Ron, hold on. Which shirt am I wearing? Yes, sir. Politics ruins everything. It's the amazing thing. Like they'll delete your Wikipedia page, or they'll get into an edit war because they'll have people trying to sabotage it because they don't like who you're representing. You say something that someone doesn't like, mass flagging campaigns, illegitimate. Or, for people who create a lot of content, allow someone to pull up a few things out of context to let these companies do what they want to do anyhow, pretextually. Everyone always says Section 230, eliminate it, whatever, sue the bastards. I don't know if anyone's ever done it, and I don't think they have. Deceitful business practices, unjust enrichment for these platforms that make money off you. And I'm not thinking of any examples in particular, but I
wrote a whole paper on this. It is a fraudulent. What's the word again?
Misrepresentation, or
it is a fraudulent business practice to induce someone to do something they otherwise wouldn't do. In other words, come onto my platform, build a business. Don't spend your money and resources and time. Moreover, I will take your content and use it to attract others to my platform.
Mm-hmm.
I will benefit from it, perhaps massively, but you have no rights whatsoever because of a click-through user agreement. No other area of commerce would we consider that to be acceptable.
Where there are deceitful warranties and representations. So they say, free speech platform, come and make yourselves heard. We'll take you. We'll let you make us money. Let's just say you make $100,000 a year, take an easy number, in super chats. YouTube gets 30% of that. Then they say, oh, we get other uses from him. We market to his viewers. We use his base or her base to bring in more people, to market YouTube even more. And then once we think we've made enough money off that person, we've brought in enough new talent, we've brought in enough new eyeballs, new viewers. Well, if we don't like that person anymore, we've got what they need out of them, and screw them in the business relationship that we promised to them and divided by for years. I don't know how anyone has not already brought this lawsuit, but give it time.
So I'm putting on the screen my my paper, Possible Rule for State Consumer Protection Regulation. I don't think there's any additional laws needed. I think that the existing consumer protection statutes do this under the FTC Act and the little FTC Acts in the individual states. But Texas went ahead and did it, and I will tell you, just between you and me, because no one else is listening, that this paper was in front of Attorney General Paxson in Texas, and their statute, which was now upheld by the Fifth Circuit, and that's obviously not necessarily a permanent thing, but that's the status for things right now, basically takes these ideas and says, you gotta, there's got to be a modicum of protection for consumers. When I had my and if you wanted to trash a Ron Coleman case for purposes of case selection and client selection, not that it wasn't a bona fide claim, but it was a doomed claim, my Laura Loomer case, okay, which the fact is it was really poorly decided. The judge said there's no business interest, Laura Loomer. Florida has a very high standard, which like a lot of states do, for showing an expectation interest, and I could have lived with that. But what they said was, the judge actually said in the opinion, you don't have any commercial interest, Laura Loomer, in your Twitter account or in your Twitter account. No commercial interest. There's a contract. There's a contract. In fact, they're pleading that the terms of service. How could that? I mean,
well, that statement to me doesn't make much sense, since everybody knows it's not just a commercial interest, but it's a marketable one, and that's why they have specifically paid promotion notifications or whatever. But Ron, the only argument that I can see being the strong one is that none of these consumer protection laws would apply to people who are using their YouTube channel as a business. They're no longer consumers, they're now merchants. And so maybe they lose the consumer protection aspect.
So I'll tell you how New Jersey has a Consumer Fraud Act. And it's quite interesting, and I'm sure it's not unique. It regards as a consumer any person, a person means a corporation as well, who is buying something, or in other words, is involved in a transaction that's not their field of commerce. In other words, even though I'm a lawyer and I'm in a commercial lease in a commercial building, but my relationship with the guy who makes the glass tabletop for my desk is as a consumer, because I'm not in the glass tabletop business. I'm in the legal profession. So I'm not in the, I'm not in the video business. I am using YouTube as a platform, and my relationship, and the beauty of that is that recognizes the real power issue, where again, in and of itself, you have this entire. But let me actually, we're preaching to the choir. You and I agree on this. Was it this experience or this insight of dealing with social media that caused you to make a bit of a political journey, which I know that you have over the last few years?
Ron, the political journey has been largely involuntary. I remember one of my earlier memories from my channel pre-2018. At the time, everything was a Trump joke, as of 2016. And I remember at one point, it was a family video. I was doing the random stuff, and someone made a political Trump joke, and I said, yeah, "No politics, please." That was it, because I didn't want the toxic environment of politics to permeate into my family channel. And then
because politics ruins everything.
Politics ruins everything. And I remember the person's response was, "I don't even know why I bother hanging around your little channel anyhow." The little didn't get me, but I did feel bad immediately for having tried to control conversation. But all that to say, I never wanted to get into politics. I never wanted to run for office, and I never wanted to. knowing what I know now, I don't think I would have said back then that I ever want to get exposed to the awfulness, the insidious corruption that is our world. But you're on a stream to some extent in life, and you can swim as much as you want. You can guide where you're going, but you're going to get pushed that way just by the forces of nature, which is what happened.
Well, that's right. Everything is political, and because everyone has to pass a loyalty test now.
Well, I'll even go back. Everything was political back in the day when I was doing apolitical, just analyzing that McDonald's decision. It's only in hindsight now that I could see how politics permeated that, how mainstream media had a role to play in demonizing the reporting on that case at the time. The McDonald's scalding hot coffee, what a stupid woman driving around with coffee between her legs. And that's what everyone remembers. And then they don't know that she wasn't driving, that the McDonald's had received hundreds of complaints about scalding hot coffee that was beyond hot for no apparent purpose, that they got complaints, that they knew about the problem, that they did. Once you know that, you could still think it's a frivolous lawsuit, but I guarantee you most people didn't know that. And then I discovered just through the ordinary course of analysis, politics has always been ruining everything. And then step into the Alex Jones analysis, which is how I ended up meeting Barnes. Well, then you realize politics is everything. And then COVID hit, and there's no coming back from it. Like, this is the world. To ignore it is to close your eyes, and that's you'll end up walking into walls.
But lots of people are really comfortable walking into those walls. They'd rather stand with their face against a wall and their feet moving, believing that they're walking, than turn around and question the direction that they're facing. And it's an extraordinary thing to see. I mean, one of the things I realized while working on this document last night, because I have to explain to a judge who might not know, and certainly prospectively to a reporter who probably does or doesn't know, and there's the reporters who cover legal topics tend to be among the stupidest.
Not stupid. I will say stupid, just oversimplified. They have 2 minutes to say a narrative talking point, and that's how it. Now
that might be you're giving the benefit of the doubt. And I appreciate that. What live streaming is. And one of the things I realized about live streaming is that with chats and super chats, of course, it's an interactive process. And I mean, have you ever, in the course of a super chat, or has anyone in the chat ever completely thrown you for a loop, and all of a sudden you're seeing things in a live stream that you're doing in a way that you hadn't before? Is that possible?
No, I can't think of anything like that offhand, but the interactive process, you learn in real time with the super chats or the comments. I mean, I bring up a lot of comments as well, but the interactive process of this is what makes it beautiful. And it's what people love. Compare that to, you get your legal analyst on CNN or Fox News, right, who's got 30 seconds to inform you of nothing. But that was enough, and that is enough for so many people. Oh, Trump raid was totally fine. He had nuclear codes. And then you don't follow the developments. You don't follow the follow-ups. You don't get the legal analysis of any of the nuance, but people still think they have a sufficient understanding until now, which is why I think, that I won't call it the targeted, but there's been some soft and hard censorship on the law tube niche that has developed, because hundreds of thousands, millions of people are now getting more analysis, more understanding than they would have ever got. And I think that's making the powers that be somewhat scared.
Yes. What do you mean?
Oh, what do I mean? Hey, like if there were none of us about Rittenhouse, people might think that decision was unjustified. More people.
But you said that there has been some censorship.
There. Well, never mind. There's been people having their accounts flagged, mass flag. Well, channels taken down, arbitrary strikes, which puts the channel at a penalty. You have the Rekieta situations, you have the Robert Gruller situations, you have the umbrella guy. The umbrella guy not even doing legal analysis, but sensitizing the world to the fact that Johnny Depp might not have been foregone guilty, as many people thought he was. I didn't think he was guilty. I just thought that trial was going to reveal much more bad stuff about Johnny Depp than Amber Heard, and boy, was I wrong. But the umbrella guy, just analyzing pop culture stuff, exposing it to more people than would otherwise see that narrative, getting brigaded, having people flag child protective services. I mean, this is the old expression. I forget who it was, but controlling the flow of information has been a primary concern for the people that hold the power. And it was very easy to control up until the advent of the internet. And now that the internet has democratized information, democratized the free flow of information, got to have people try to get that power back in the hands of those who want to control it, those who want to be the gatekeepers, and governments that want to make sure that the people, the masses, don't get too smart and don't get too informed.
And we're really watching it happen in real time. And people who from my entire ancient lifetime have styled themselves as civil libertarians and champions of free speech and free expression and speaking truth to power, have so willingly become not part of the problem, the problem.
Because they view themselves as being on the side of power, and not power only in the power sense, but power in the moral virtue sense. So they're the arbiters. They get to say rebel news is disinformation, they should be censored. They get to say Alex Jones is a conspiracy theorist, he should be censored, not realizing, some of them realize a little sooner than later or later than sooner, then Ethan Klein gets censored. Ethan Klein H3H3 for a stupid joke. And then I was like, well, but it was just a joke. Oh, when you do it, it's a joke. When someone else does it, it's a hate crime. When you do it, it's a mistake. When someone else does it, it's misinformation. And so, in Canada, you got people supporting this Bill C-11, which is the federal updating of the Canada Broadcast Act, which would basically govern the internet, govern, what do they call them? Broadcasters, in quotes, YouTube channels, govern them the way they govern radio and television, apply Canadian content requirements, apply disinformation labels, downrank, etc. And people support this because they think they're on the side of virtue, they're on the side of power, and it comes easy for them because they're not yet in the crosshairs, or they're not the nail that's sticking up, but they will be sooner than later. They just don't understand it until it happens.
Not only will they be in the crosshairs, but after the revolution, they're the first ones put up against the wall because they're dangerous. Once they stop being useful, they're actually a danger because they think of themselves as entitled, and they're a little bit too, they're miniature versions of power. And listen, now we sound like Alex Jones ourselves. But
it's Alex Jones, above and beyond having been wrong from time to time, having said some very stupid things from time to time. Is that the threshold now? Alex Jones has said some stupid things from time to time. He's been wrong from time to time. He's been hyperbolic all of the time, but that's part and parcel of the delivery. But that's the standard. So when Rachel Maddow said that the vaccine will prevent transmission, that's kind of wrong. That kind of, might not insult people. That might not hurt people's feelings. That might actually get people sick and worse. That's fine. It was a mistake. When the Russia collusion hoax, that's fine. That was a mistake. The Nicholas Sandman, that's fine. That was a mistake. Oh, but Alex Jones, I can't think of anybody else right now who they're really. Kanye West.
But here's the thing. Okay, but you know what? This is generic cancel culture, generic political correctness stuff. But the thing about Alex Jones is that now you've got a judge. That's only one judge, but a judge who is all in on that. Whatever Alex Jones did, it wasn't defamation. He hurt people's feelings. He was a jerk. He said stupid things. He said crazy things. But the idea that a judge would say, "Oh yeah, no, that's enough defamation. That's a defamation thing." I mean, when you tell me about a runaway jury, runaway juries have been a problem forever. $1 billion. Why not $30 billion? It's meaningless. It's somebody else's money. It's crazy. But the idea that a judge let that case go to trial, go to a jury, and I'll bring it back to bring us back to the beginning of our discussion as I bring it on home, which is that those of us who are still involved in the legal profession, I have seen such a change in what will happen in a court, what you can expect, regardless of who nominated a judge, what party he or she came out of. There was this sense that the judiciary was a sort of a backstop. And yes, there was a creeping activism that definitely took place over the course of my lifetime. but it wasn't as if you would just have these absolutely far out, decisions that, and plus there's like virtually no review.
I think, Ron, it's predictable by politics. I mean, that's the issue now. And I'm not black-pilled yet, but I'm thoroughly red-pilled, and maybe red-pilled enema. Is that I always said, like, the American court system, it's so politicized, it's predictive. Canada's not yet there. Canada got there real fast. It got there real fast under it might have already been there and I just wasn't aware of it, but under COVID. I mean, you got federal judges concluding that mandatory quarantining for healthy people who travel back to Canada at a government quarantine facility isn't a charter violation. You got judges concluding that curfew, being told to stay in your house after a certain time for a virus, is not a charter violation. You got a judge who just, I don't know if you heard about this, but it's crazy. There was a charter challenge to Justin Trudeau's most recent prohibition on unvaccinated Canadians from boarding planes and trains. The last living signatory to the Charter of Rights, Brian Peckford, filed a charter challenge. It goes through the process for 9 months, say close to a year. Discoveries for over a month with experts, everything. The government lifts or suspends the restriction, and then 9 months into the process, after the parties have incurred hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fee expenses, the government makes a motion to dismiss for moot, right, because the impugned restrictions are no longer in effect. They suspended them, and the judge grants it. I mean, and so you see, I mean, that one wasn't even predictive, because I said, as black-pilled as I might be close to being, no way the judge dismisses that. It will leave Canadians in despair, and lo and behold, dismissed. Moot. Yeah. The government can abuse you.
They're doing it all the time. They're doing it all the time. They're cowards. Oh, great. I have been relieved of the responsibility of having to make a decision. I'm having to do my job here. And I won't have to, either write a really stupid opinion or
piss off my boss.
Crazy. Viva, thanks for schmoozing with me.
Ron, thank you for having me. It's a
real pleasure.
I mean, the funny thing is, it felt like we had known each other in real life before we actually met in real life.
That's right. And it's like that. It's like that. And I think it's because of that. I think it's that same Friday night experience.
Yeah.
Great talking to you. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.